The Sports Central will be giving you guys our first edition of College Football Bowl projections for the 2023 college football season. We are officially halfway through the regular season, and at this point in the year, we have a pretty good idea as to which teams are main contenders, who's most likely to make it to a bowl game, and who's going to miss. And so with that, I'll be giving you guys our first edition of bowl projections here today. This gives you a pretty good look as to which teams should be playing in which bowl games, especially if the season ended today, as we look forward to December. So with that, let's get started with the top of the list. We got the Bahamas Bowl, Louisiana Tech and Eastern Michigan. New Orleans Bowl, we got Liberty and App State, two teams that have been really solid this season. Liberty's still undefeated, one of the few undefeated teams still remaining. Cure Bowl, we got James Madison and Marshall. James Madison, another team to keep an eye on. This team is a fringe top 25 team right now. New Mexico Bowl, we got UNLV and New Mexico State. LA Bowl, we got your first Power 5 team, which is Arizona. This team got currently projected for 6 wins this season. Although they've been impressive at times so far this year. They've played a tough schedule, and they've kept it close against a lot of really good teams in the Pac-12 so far. So definitely still keep an eye on them, and I've got them in the LA Bowl taking on Wyoming, a talented team in the Mountain West. Next up, we got the Independence Bowl, TCU and Washington State. TCU is a team that I've got projected for 6 wins as well. Washington State at 8, even though they're coming off of a terrible loss this past week. But Cougars still a talented team, and TCU a team that is starting to gain some momentum. Looking forward to the second half of the season, so I do think they get to 6 wins. But either way, definitely an underwhelming season in comparison to last year. Another thing I do want to mention about the Pac-12, I've got Colorado actually out of our bowl projections this week. I had them in, I think, the LA Bowl last week. But I've got them currently projected for 5 wins based on the way they played Stanford last week. I think they get a couple more wins this season, but I've lost a lot of confidence in the Buffs at this point. Myrtle Beach Bowl, we got Troy and Toledo. Frisco Bowl, we got SMU and Texas State. Boca Raton Bowl, Georgia State and South Alabama. Gasparilla Bowl, we got South Carolina and UCF. UCF's a team I got projected for 6. Same with South Carolina. I think Gamecocks, I'm kind of on the edge about making a bowl game right now, but I think they find a way down the stretch, similar like how they did last year when they got hot down the stretch in November. Birmingham Bowl, we got Auburn and Jacksonville State. Auburn's a team I got projected for 7. Jacksonville State has been impressive to this point. Camellia Bowl, we got Ohio and Central Michigan. Armed Forces Bowl, we got Iowa State and Army. Cyclones I got projected for 6. And Army and the Armed Forces Bowl, obviously, most years, so I'd say that's a good matchup there. Idaho Potato Bowl, we got Bowling Green and San Diego State. 68 Ventures Bowl, we got UTSA and Georgia Southern. Las Vegas Bowl, Wisconsin and Utah. Badgers I had projected for, I think, the Citrus Bowl last week. My bowl projections didn't get posted last week, but I still made them. It's not a bunch has changed since last week, but Wisconsin, after the loss to Iowa, I do have them down a bit, but they still have a pretty good matchup, taking on a Utah team I got projected for 8. Both teams in that matchup, I think we'll go 8-4 at this point. Hawaii Bowl, we got Colorado State and FAU. Quick Lane Bowl, we got Boise State flexing in for a Big Ten team. I've currently got 9 teams projected in the Big Ten to make a bowl game. So 5 missing, which would be a higher number than in years past. So that does make Boise State a team that could be a candidate to flex into that one and take on Miami, Ohio. First Responder Bowl, we got Louisiana and Western Kentucky. Guaranteed Rate Bowl, we got Nebraska and Oklahoma State. Nebraska got projected for 6. I think they play pretty well down the stretch. They got a favorable schedule as well, and same with Oklahoma State. I've got them projected for 7. Military Bowl, we got Air Force flexing in for the ACC. They've been impressive. They could be a team that we could end up seeing in the Fiesta Bowl in that group of 5 New Year's 6 position. It's either them or Tulane, I think, right now. I've got Tulane in there, but Air Force is a team to keep an eye on. I've got them taking on Memphis right now in the Military Bowl, even though they're probably deserving at this point of a better bowl game than that. Duke's Mayo Bowl, we got Kentucky and Louisville. This would be an interesting in-state matchup here. Kentucky got projected for 7, Louisville for 9. I think Louisville finishes off strong. I've got 3 teams projected for 9 in the ACC. Only one of them can make one of those bigger bowl games, and I've got Duke in there right now, and we'll talk about them more in a sec. But Holiday Bowl, we got Miami and Oregon State. Oregon State's a team that's been very impressive so far, and I've got them projected for 9 this season. And this is still a good bowl game for them. Miami, of course, being a team that I think ends up with 7. But we could see Clemson maybe in this position as well for the ACC. I wouldn't be surprised. And Clemson versus Oregon State, that would make for an interesting storyline there. The Beavers, of course, with DJ Uiagalelei playing his former team in Clemson. That could be a fun one for sure. Texas Bowl, we got Missouri and BYU. Mizzou's been impressive this season. I got them up to 8, BYU to 7. I think both teams definitely playing well at this point of the season, and Texas Bowl is a pretty good bowl game in general. Fenway Bowl, we got Syracuse and South Florida. Syracuse, I got up to 7. Obviously, I think Syracuse being close to a home team there with Fenway. We do see that sometimes with bowl games too. The bowl games do like to take teams that are close to their locations. So we kind of see that as well with like Tennessee and the Music City Bowl. I got them projected for that. To take on Minnesota. Tennessee, I got projected for 8, Minnesota for 6. And Pinstripe Bowl, we got Rutgers and Georgia Tech. I think Rutgers has been impressive at this point. I've got them currently projected for 6, although I wouldn't be surprised. They've got upside for like 7 or 8 wins this season, which is crazy to say of Rutgers, but that's actually a talented team this season that has been a dark horse so far in the Big Ten. Georgia Tech, I think, they had that huge win over Miami. That's going to be the one big win that carries them into bowl contention. I've got them projected for 6, and not in a bad bowl game taking on Rutgers. Pop-Tarts Bowl, we got Kansas State and Clemson. This was formerly the Cheez-It Bowl, I think. Kansas State and Clemson, 2 talented teams. And once again, I think Clemson and Miami could easily swap positions. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Miami versus Kansas State and Clemson go to the Holiday Bowl just because of the storyline. That could be there with them taking on Oregon State. But as of now, I've got K-State and Clemson in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Alamo Bowl, we got Kansas and Clemson. Jayhawks, I've still got projected for 8, pretty much third place team in the Big 12. I've got them with a tiebreaker over K-State right now. But Kansas and Oregon, what a matchup that would be. Oregon, I've got projected for 10 this season. I think they take a loss down the stretch still. But Ducks versus Jayhawks, that would be quite a matchup there. Gator Bowl, we got Texas A&M and Maryland. Aggies, I've got projected for 8. Maryland for 8 as well. This one would make sense in the Gator Bowl. Sun Bowl, we got UCLA and NC State. UCLA got projected for 9. The Pac-12 is such a deep conference this season, though. I mean, you got, I would say, 7 really good teams in the Pac-12. That goes from Washington to USC, Oregon, Oregon State. Even UCLA, Utah, and Washington State, all really talented teams. And so if you're playing a Pac-12 team in a bowl game this season, it's going to be a challenge for sure. That's something that you don't usually see. But Sun Bowl, UCLA, and NC State would make sense. I've got Wolfpack projected for 7. And then Liberty Bowl, we got Florida and West Virginia. I've got West Virginia projected for 7. Florida for 7 as well right now. So this one would make sense as well, even though West Virginia is a team that has definitely exceeded expectations at this point in the season. Music City Bowl, mentioned this one, Tennessee and Minnesota, and then Arizona Bowl, Fresno State and Northern Illinois. Moving on to some of your bigger bowl games now, we got the Citrus Bowl, Iowa and LSU. This one I had Wisconsin in last week, but Iowa, of course, beating them. And the thing is about the Hawks, this team is awful offensively, but their defense has found a way. And with the injuries, Cade McNamara now out, I mean, Iowa's ceiling is definitely limited, but I still got the Hawkeyes projected for 10 right now. I think they go 10-2 at this point. They've got a pretty favorable schedule down the stretch now. I think they take a loss somewhere, not sure where, but I think they end up 10-2, and that puts them in this one against a 9-3 LSU team. And LSU is probably going to be a favorite in this one for sure, considering Iowa's offense. But Iowa's defense has found a way, so I wouldn't count them out quite yet. Relay Quest Bowl, we got Duke and Ole Miss. Ole Miss, I got projected for 9-3. Same for Duke. And Duke, I've kind of gotten that 3-way tie with Louisville and Clemson. All 9-3 teams. But Duke has been impressive. This is a talented team this season, very experienced, and so I think they find a way into a pretty good bowl game here, taking on a talented Ole Miss team. Now, if you're New Year's 6 matchups, this one would be insane. USC and Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl. Obviously, the big storyline here would be Lincoln Riley taking on his former team in OU. And obviously, I mean, you got 2 really talented teams here. Oklahoma, I've got them losing in the Big 12 championship to Texas. I think we see a Texas-OU rematch in the Big 12 title game, but Texas ends up winning it. I do have Oklahoma projected for 12-1, though, heading into this matchup. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were ranked probably top 7 or so. Somewhere between 5 and 7, and USC honestly could be in the same position. I got USC as the runner-up in the Pac-12. I got them taking on Washington for the Pac-12 title, and this one would make total sense in the Cotton Bowl. Next up, we got North Carolina and Penn State in the Orange Bowl. North Carolina I've got as the second-place team in the ACC. They're going to take on Florida State for the title game, and I've got North Carolina 11-2 heading into this matchup. Penn State, obviously one of the big three in the Big Ten. You got Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State. I think Penn State heads into this matchup 11-1. I don't think that they beat out Ohio State or Michigan. I've got Michigan winning the division in the end, and I'll talk more about Michigan in a sec. But Penn State, I've got them in the Orange Bowl taking on North Carolina. This one would definitely make sense. Two really stacked and experienced football teams. Peach Bowl, we got Ohio State and Alabama. Typically a matchup you would see in the college football playoff, but this time in the Peach Bowl, we got Alabama. This team is, I've got projected for 11-2, runner-up in the SEC. I do have them winning the West. And Ohio State on the other side, I've got second place in the Big Ten East. I think they find a way to beat Penn State this weekend. I just don't think they beat Michigan. So I've got them 11-1 heading into this matchup, taking on Alabama. And the history of the two teams as well, it would make sense to see them be matched up in the Peach Bowl. Fiesta Bowl, we got Texas and Tulane. Texas I've got as the Big 12 champion, but the first one out of the college football playoff. I think it's going to come down to, and we'll talk more about it in a second, but Texas, I think they are very much capable. I mean, they lost to OU, but I think if they can beat OU in the Big 12 championship, it would make total sense to have them number 4 in the college football playoff. But I just feel like the number 4 team that I got in there is just better, and they're going to have a stronger resume, I think, heading into the college football playoff. But I mean, Texas, you could have them take on Alabama for a rematch in the Peach Bowl, or you could have Ohio State there. And even if you look at the Cotton Bowl, Texas versus USC is a possibility as well. But I feel like Oklahoma USC would be would make for a better storyline. So it makes sense for Texas to fall into the Fiesta Bowl to take on Tulane. But Tulane, of course, it could be Tulane or Air Force at this current point. Really, the New Year's Six bid is definitely up in the air at this point. There's not a major standout, but this one would make sense here. Now, looking at the college football playoff, I've got Florida State, Michigan in the Rose Bowl. Florida State number 2 as the ACC champion, and I've got them 13-0 heading into the semifinals. So they would be an undefeated 13-0 team, and based on the way Georgia's been playing as well, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Florida State maybe even was the number 1 team heading into the college football playoff if they were undefeated versus 13-0 Georgia team. But based on the fact the Bulldogs have won 2 straight national titles, that probably gives Georgia the edge. But Florida State, Michigan in this one, I think Michigan does take a loss down the stretch, though. I think they lose to Penn State down the stretch, but they still beat Ohio State. They get to the Big Ten championship and probably destroy whoever they play, most likely Iowa or Wisconsin. And so that puts Michigan at number 3, taking on Florida State, a matchup that absolutely it could go either way, and that's in the Rose Bowl. And then the Sugar Bowl, we got Georgia and Washington. Now this, I think Georgia finishes out, gets to 13-0. They're undefeated heading into this one, but the number 4 seed is going to have a lot of controversy this season, I think. You got Texas or Washington currently for me for number 4, and I think Washington, the way this team is played, they're just a more complete team, and I think Washington maybe does take a loss down the stretch as well. But just the resume of the Huskies versus Texas, the Pac-12 is the stronger conference this season, and if Washington can be 12-1, a Pac-12 champion heading into the semifinals, I think that definitely gives them the edge. And so, I mean, it's very close, and this is definitely one that could go either way. But I do think Washington finds a way into the college football playoff if they're a 12-1 Pac-12 champion in the Sugar Bowl as well. But a lot of things can still happen. We're just in late October. This is only the first edition of Bowl Projections. We'll be doing this every week of the season from here on out as we look forward to down the stretch. But with that, let me know your thoughts in the comments below on these bowl projections, your college football playoff predictions as well. Drop those in the comments and stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll catch you on the next one.